Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Business Boost. This week, we're going to be diving into some exciting topics. Lastly, we're going to be looking at digital workers. But first of all, Therman has a story. The last couple of weeks, he's been transitioning from being Mr. SharePoint to being Professor Therman. And he's got a story to tell us about that I think is really, really valuable to anyone who's looking to get the best tools in their business.
Nick, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. So yeah, I'm a little bit of a professor. You know what I'm saying? I've been teaching at the college recently here. I did some teaching last year in a different semester, but it's been picking back up this semester too. So it's like for continuing education folks, they'll come in and get some SharePoint training. And what's crazy is that on the catalog, it says SharePoint 101. That's all it says, and then it gives a description of what you might learn. And people are still showing up. But I've told the college we need to change that. Like we need to make it more specific because while some people are coming, it's not like a lot. And I think it's only that because people don't really understand what they're coming and getting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if we change the class from saying like SharePoint 101 to SharePoint for project managers or build a website using SharePoint or something like that,
Yeah.
more people would show up. So apparently you have to get the name change in before the right now is summer semester and then coming up is the fall semester. And because the fall catalog is already printed, I can't change the name. I have to change the name now before before the spring catalog gets printed next year, which is kind of crazy to me. I don't even know what's going on there, but
If they just published all that stuff on SharePoint, then you could just go in there and you could change that, couldn't you?
yeah,
That'd be
exactly.
great.
So now here's the thing. One of the students in the class while I was teaching was telling me how they use smart sheets. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And she's like, then when I get to the portion of the class where I show her SharePoint list, she's like, I can't believe this. This is a thing. And she made this statement. She goes, there are a bunch of people in my organization who are paid a lot of money. And they did not even tell us about this. They didn't even know it existed because we went and got smart sheets and we pay. It's expensive, she said. And we pay for smart sheets because you have to buy licenses. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. I didn't even know that. So she said, should I switch? Should I switch from Smartsheets to using SharePoint? And I gave her a few points. First, I said, you might, if you are enjoying using your tool and you're finding it effective, I'm not going to be the guy that says, hey, you need to switch to SharePoint for SharePoint's sake, or for switching sake. I'm not going to do that unless I hear you complaining about the tool. And then I can say, oh, okay, well, I can compare features at this point. But if you're not complaining and it's working, leave it be. However, the number one thing is that the comparison is not SharePoint to Smartsheets. The comparison is is Smartsheets to one feature in SharePoint, which is SharePoint lists. Like that's a specific tool with Microsoft even broke it out and made it its own app called Lists. That's what you compare to Smartsheet because that's only one feature. SharePoint can do a whole bunch of other things, right? So I'm like, if you're doing any comparison, that's one. Then number two is the positive about going to SharePoint is that it's integrated with the rest of the 365 suite. Yep. So while Smartsheet sits outside of your environment, your Microsoft environment, SharePoint is embedded in there and connected to multiple apps, and it's a really cool experience, really smooth. And then her talking about how expensive it was. I didn't get into the exact numbers. I couldn't tell you how expensive Smartsheet is. I have no idea, but I do know that you get an entire suite of extremely powerful apps for a very low price monthly with Microsoft, and it's Microsoft, so that's why they're able to offer it such a low price. So she took that advice. I'll find out later, what she did with it. But the main thing I'm trying to find out here is I didn't know what to tell her about her IT folks. When I'm not going to say like, oh, well, your IT folks suck. She was basically saying, how do I fix this? You know what I'm saying? Like she had my wheels turning and thinking there's people sitting inside of organizations right now who are either getting no advice or subpar advice from their IT folks, and it's costing them. It's literally costing that organization money to pay for smart sheets instead of just using an application that they have inside of the suite. So I'm now like, okay, how would she have found good advice? How would this situation be rectified, or not even rectified? How does this situation not happen if she is looking for good advice, good recommendations to get them in the right place? I mean, yeah, I could do it, but I'm one person out of a billion people that could do this. So where does a person working inside of a business go? What's their steps? What's a good process or recommendation to get the right things for their business? Where does it cost them?
Yeah, I think a lot of this probably comes down to, there's aspects of what's the scale of the business, right? And that comes into this a lot. Like, what type of business, what scale are they, how innovative are they? The bigger the business, the more resources they're likely to have in that internal IT team. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're driving that internal IT team to innovate. The focus of IT support can be solely that, just supporting, this is what we've done, and this is what we're going to continue to do. And not necessarily asking questions like, well, what's the business value of this process that we're doing or we're being asked to do? Like, what is this actually going to deliver? And getting that kind of integrated approach to technology, where technology is the enabler to what you're trying to achieve, and you think of it from that point of view. I think that's a very different type of workload to someone that perhaps their job is to secure the network or to make sure that all of the endpoints are running as they should do. Like, these are different needs, and so unless you've got that that leadership, that innovation leadership somewhere within your technology group, that's going to be difficult to achieve. So where do you go to get advice? Well, I think it depends on exactly what you're trying to drive forward, but getting some outside advice, I think, is often useful. One of the things we've talked about on the show before is MSPs and the value of MSPs. And certainly from my point of view, if you're talking smaller businesses, if you're talking 100, 200, 300 employees, then probably you can't have the resources to stand up an IT group that is going to have everything you need to move forward technology, but also do it safely and securely and with compliance and so on and so forth. So going to a specialist, an MSP, a big enough MSP that has those capabilities is going to be helpful. But even saying that, there are good MSPs, there are not so good MSPs when it comes to this issue of how do you drive forward the innovation around your technology. And I think that's the difficulty of we've moved past just giving people like a bunch of tools and being like, there you go, to the point where this technology piece can be completely integrated into everything we can do and almost drive different strands of business forward. The positives about technology can really push you forward and accelerate, and the negatives with technology can really drag you back. If you've got poorly integrated technology, it can really drag you back. So this is really a question, I think, Thurman, about how do leaders in organizations perceive this issue of technology integration for their business and the importance of adopting a consistent set of tools that are chosen for the right reasons, the reasons that they're going to drive what you're doing forward.
Right. Yeah. And that sounds like a non-technical thing. Like, that's to your point about the IT folks inside of the department, they have a job, you know what I mean? So you can't even like fault them unless there's like some special IT person who by default they're just always trying to find like the cool new thing, you know what I mean? Matter of fact, when I was an employee working in an organization, that's how I used to do. I used to have to bring stuff to the organization. It was mainly to my boss, and then the boss will bring it to the right people. Where I was like, yo, look at this. Look at what we can do. We should be doing this. And I'm technical, yeah, fine. But really, it sounds like you're describing something that's not technical. So can they go outside? Yes, there's consultants like me and you. There's MSPs. But a person literally inside of the organization doing that, like picking up the phone and or getting online and reaching out to MSP, that's a very doable thing. I don't know that they know they can do that though. But you can do that, because if you're reaching out to an MSP, this is great because they're like, hey, this might be potential business. So that's great.
Yeah.
Or if you're reaching out to a consultant. But imagine having someone inside of the organization who had business knowledge, and they took that business knowledge and they also were like, hey, I think we need to continue to innovate. We need to stay on the bleeding edge, or we need to, make sure we're using the right tools. And then that person literally is paid to actively do this. I was thinking that that's actually something you need to do with AI. When AI first started getting popping, I was like, listen, you need to have an AI person in your company, period. There needs to be a new position specifically for one person or a team that is focused on AI. It's moving way too fast.
That definitely is happening. We're seeing that happen. That we're getting chief AI officers and various roles like that appearing in businesses. But the question is, like, at what end of the scale does that happen? That I think that's the. Well, I mean, there's lots of different types of businesses, lots of different profiles of businesses with different balances between people on the floor and people in back office positions and so on and so forth. And I think we always, when we're talking, we're always focusing on solutions a lot of the time that are for those very technology focused enterprise scale organizations, right? And the question is, in the economy, the majority of businesses are not very large scale technology savvy enterprise scale businesses, right? So the question is, how do you get this benefit to everyone? I don't know the profile of the people that you were teaching, but I'm guessing that people who are looking at kind of third party options for training, a lot of the time those people may be coming from kind of mid tier businesses as opposed to the largest enterprises, for example.
Right.
So do those businesses have the resources because there's so much to do. There's AI happening. There's low code happening. There's new data compliance standards. Do you need to adopt GDPR? All these different things going on. There's just a lot for any business to focus on. And if you get to a certain scale, sure, you can have a person or a team that does AI, and you can have a person or a team that does data compliance and so on and so forth. But how does the business that's got 50 employees or 100 employees or even 1,000 employees do all of that? It's a difficult ask.
Yeah, it is. Now I would say, though, I'm thinking, like, let's say, for instance, you put out really good information on a consistent basis for free on a platform that everybody knows about, which is YouTube. So let's say there's 500,000, or not 500,000, 500 to 1,000 team is going along about their business, but they could do something like subscribe to your information. So they could subscribe to your channel, get notified when you put out videos, and then all they have to do, the first step, is just watch your video. And they work at an organization. So if they work at this organization for free, they could get some high quality information. And then here we talk about the next steps. You could either reach out to you, Nick, and ask some questions, or you could take it to the person in your company and say, I just watched this video that said this, and this. What should we do here? And then there could be a project that's created to look into how we could use AI, or look into whatever the topic is. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's crazy. I'm in this business of content creation and didn't even think about this, but there's definitely that. There's a bunch of people on the internet putting out a bunch of really good information that it's a one-way conversation. So it's not even like you go sit in a room with this person and then you say, hey, so what about this? And then you give them the opportunity to like slick talk you, maybe, let's say, right? And they're selling. Instead, you can, from afar, look at that information and then do your own research and then decide over some time, maybe you do want to talk to Nick, you know what I'm saying? Or maybe you do want to talk to whoever the content creator is. But that, I think I've worked myself through this, talking out loud with you here, to say that's a great start, is if you find a content creator who is publishing information on the topic that you're looking for, it's a great start, because then you, like I said, you either consume that information, do your own research, consume the information, further research with the person who's putting out the content, if they're able to be reached, or consume the information and take it to whoever you need to take it to inside of your organization so that they could take the right steps, because maybe you don't have the authority to do certain things. So this is the internet is a great place to start.
I think you're right, but I do think you have to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. Now, firstly, I'll say the thing on internally getting the right person to reach out. One of the things, if you reach out to me, one of the things that I'm going to do is try to understand what your role in your business is and what your authority to make decisions about the things that we're talking about is.
Very important.
Because as a consultant, there's no point in me spending a lot of time on putting together a solution for someone in a business who then doesn't have the ability to actually sell the business on that solution.
Yep.
So I'm going to want the IT department to be involved. I'm going to want the decision makers to be involved in that, because it's very difficult within an organization to, you could reach out and get help on something, and then you can end up with someone working with you who actually causes more problems than they create solutions.
Yes.
Because they're just amplifying a certain amount of confusion that you have with the internal structure. If you can't get your IT department on board in talking to me, then I'm going to have some very serious questions about what I can actually do to help you,
right.
Because that's a cultural issue within your organization. So that would be the first thing that I would say. The second thing I would say on content on the internet is, yeah, I agree with you, Therman, but with a big dose of salt. Because, my area that I look at a lot is AI, right? I put out a lot of content on AI. I also see a lot of content out there that is absolute crap about AI. This week, just looking at my feed on LinkedIn, like lots of these are the top 5 prompts for this or the top 10 prompts for that. Yeah, I also have a book full of prompts. You can buy it if you repost this and you engage with this. I'll send you a copy of my prompts, and all that. And this is exactly the same as, what were those scams that we used to get in like the 90s and early 2000s, where people would like send around like it was like someone being sick and you just wanted to like send this to 10,000 people and things. And at the end of the day, there wasn't anyone behind it. It was just someone trying to make noise, right? They were just like, you know what I mean? Those scams that were going on. And it's the same thing. Like, we're rewarding people for making noise rather than rewarding people for being right? So I want to find someone who talks about AI. You can find a lot of people who talk about AI who demonstratively know nothing about AI. What they know about is how to shout loudly at the internet and get lots of people to click like on their stuff.
Right.
And that's one of the downsides of the internet. So take it with a grain of salt. I think.
Well, not just the internet. That has been going on for forever. It's like a thing. You have to know how to get a message out. You know what I mean? Like, if you have really good information, how valuable? Okay, if you have really good information that other people need to consume, how valuable is that information if the other people aren't getting it? If you're not getting it to other people, so those folks who are, hey, repost and like and do this, I don't like it either, but they have a necessary skill to get the word out. Can you imagine putting together the skill of getting the word out, whether you call it marketing, promoting, I don't know what it's called, but if you know how to get the word out and you have the knowledge, imagine what you could do. You know what I'm saying? Like that is, it makes you extremely dangerous. But to your point is, yeah, there's people shouting and screaming, and they're louder than the people who are just in the trenches doing the good work. But it's a thing that's been going on for forever. And two, this is where that discernment comes in, where you have to do your research after you come across a thing. You come across a thing, you're like looking for AI, and yeah, they got the cool graphic, they got the thousands of people clicking like and a bunch of reposts and just looking like they command a lot of authority. So you think this must be good information. Not necessarily true. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
You got to do
you have to
research.
do your research. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, one of the things that I always find very surprising when working with clients is sometimes there'll be projects where I'll recommend that the right way of doing it is to work with a third party, because there's some requirements that I can't deliver and get them in touch with and talking to a third party. And obviously there are providers in lots of different fields that I have relationships with where I can recommend who to talk to. But it surprises me how few people who I'm working with in that kind of mode ask me a question about whether I'm being compensated by the third party, whether there's any financial or business reward that comes to me through a recommendation of using X versus using Y. And personally, from an ethical point of view, anyone that I pass business to, I don't engage in those types of relationships because I don't want to be in a grey area where I know I'm going to get X amount from company A and nothing from company B, and even not knowing if that skews your perception of company A versus company B, you know. So it's just not a path that I want to travel down. But there are lots of people who do travel down those paths. This is a big thing in our industry of these kind of kickbacks that you can get from providers of whether it be hardware or software or services or whatever it might be. And so just asking those questions, like equipping yourself with the right knowledge, anyone who is trying to work with you ethically and actually trying to get you the right answer, in my view, is not going to be insulted or upset by you asking questions that check the veracity of what they're offering.
Totally agree.
If
Yep.
someone is upset or insulted by those questions, then I would start asking the question as to why are they?
Right.
What are they trying to hide from you? Because I think the best way to be, and I think you do too, Thurman, is just be upfront with people as to what you're delivering. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. And
Yep.
like there's a big pie of business out there, and if you want to go to someone else, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine to do that as well. So I just think that you have to protect yourself by asking the right questions, by asking
That's the right question.
what this salesperson in front of me, are they offering me advice that's general, or are they trying to sell me a product?
Right. Yeah.
Like the number of people who think that the salesperson for product X is really a consultant for function Y. Like, I never get that. Like, they think that the person who literally is compensated for selling a particular product, like on their business card, is the product they're selling you, and yet their customers still think that they are providing advice that is just general industry advice. Like, of course it isn't. They can provide you with useful information, but you just have to be aware that they're trying to sell their product, and that's okay. Everyone's trying to sell something.
Right.
We're trying to sell consulting services. I'm upfront about that, but just be clear, like, what is the person who's sitting with you actually trying to sell you? Where do they have a vested interest? And even if they're the most upfront, honest person, if they sell for a particular company, then they have a vested interest in knowing more about that product than about another product.
Right.
That might be more suitable for you. It may not be that they're trying to sell you on something that's wrong, but they may just not have the knowledge of the other products that are out there in detail to be able to advise you on that.
Yeah, and so then that means that the advice that we would want you to take away from here today is ask the right questions. So in that class that I was teaching to that student, I could have told her, well, listen, if you're doing the research, she's just she's an employee, she was high up the chain. wasn't all the way up the chain, but she was high up the chain. And it was like, if you want to know these things, ask the right questions. Matter of fact, she is the one who got herself to this class. So it wasn't like the company was like, hey, we need you to get out there and do this. I forgot what the reason was, but something happened that had her curious, and she was like looking it up and then found out there was a SharePoint class at the college. So again, a self-starter, someone who just, wants to know, someone who's trying to do better things. That's going to happen. But it just needs to be intentional. So her thing would be asking the right questions. She definitely asked a bunch of really good questions in class and learned some stuff. So that's one. And my thing would be word of mouth. If you see someone succeeding, I am not shy about this at all. If I see someone succeeding, it's not just technology, just in life, period. If they're doing something that is looking like it's working for them, I'm going to ask questions. So
What's
I guess it goes back
sauce?
to that. Yeah. I guess it goes back to asking the right questions and finding out what their special sauce is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Exactly.
And some people will not want to tell you, and some people will, and that's just how it is. You just find out what they're doing.
I mean, I think most people like talking about themselves.
They do.
Right? So, like, if you're like, hey, I think the way that you do X is really cool, or I really like what I saw that you did with Y, most people want to talk about that. Mm-hmm. That's an easy conversation to have with people of, I think you're great. Tell me how you're so great. Like, right. Like most people are like that. I'm British, so we don't like that very much. We're kind of like, no, you're wrong. You're wrong. I'm terrible. I'm really bad at that. There's 100 people out there who are much better at that. That's a British failing, though, that we do that. But I live in the US now, and particularly, I think that there is a cultural difference that people in the United States do like sharing information like that a lot more than people do back home.
That's interesting.
But yeah, I think if people are doing well and you're like, I really like what you're doing with this, then it's an easy conversation to have. But if you're that senior leader, like if you're the person who's up the kind of chain in an organization, and you want to ask the right questions, my advice on this is a little bit different, in that you may be responsible for so many things that you can't possibly know the detail of all of them, mm-hmm. right? But what I find is useful is to dig into the detail of something. With the, if it's your IT department and you're kind of like, I'm not really sure whether we're getting the right output here. You don't need to know everything, but dig under the surface of something. And if you start to see warning signs that maybe the right options have not been considered here, or there isn't good connectivity between what are our goals as a business and what are we doing over here, mm-hmm. then that should set off an alarm that says, I need to look into this a little bit deeper. Mm-hmm. And I think that as a leader, that's an important skill to have. Of you can't be shy to dig under the surface of stuff just because you don't know all of it. And you have to know at least enough to know whether what you're getting back is BS. Because sometimes you do get back BS, and it can flip around the other way of like, why have I seen you spend your entire morning watching YouTube videos? Well, you need to create an environment where there's a good answer to that, which is I wasn't sure how to innovate around this issue, and so I'm learning about this technology. And unless you make that okay within your business as well, then you're never going to create that acceleration forward in a particular direction that we're talking about. So I think there's balance there. But as a leader, I've led departments doing things that I am not an expert in by any degree, and I've had people reporting to me who are much more expert in a particular field than I would ever want to be, like fields that they're not ones that I've studied. But it's a different
skill. You're deploying a different skill daily to lead those people.
Exactly. So you don't need to know the detail of everything, but you do need to. You should trust but verify. Scratch under the surface of something enough to understand, is the thought process that you're seeing the thought process that you want to see? Because if you scratch under the surface of why we have smart sheets and there isn't a good alignment to what are the goals of the business, what are we actually trying to achieve, how are we supporting our employees to have the best possible tools, then you can possibly extrapolate from that there isn't that thought process in anything else either. And
Right.
that's the
Good
problem
point.
that as a leader you should be trying to fix.
Good point. That's a strong point. I completely agree. Man, I could go on about this all day, but I do want to get to this other topic.
Yeah.
Nick, something came across your timeline. We wouldn't be the business boost unless we talked about some AI. And this was rather, I would say comical.
I would say
opinion.
comical as well. Shall we look at it? Shall we look at this?
Yeah, let's dig in. Let's see what's going on here. Our AI story of the
here we
week.
go. So this was the thing that I found so interesting this week. Sarah Franklin at a company called Lattice. The CEO of that company, Lattice, is apparently an HR company that had been set up by Sam Altman's brother.
Mhm.
And last week, I think, they decided that they were going to make history by being the first company to be able to offer responsible employment of AI digital workers, with them being able to be onboarded and trained and assigned goals and performance metrics and systems access, etc. And very helpfully, they helped us to understand this by giving us an org chart that has both humans on there and Piper AI. I don't know why all of these AIs are called Piper. Is there some reason for this? Is that their name of the? It just seems to be a name that comes up a lot in AI. Maybe I'm missing something there, but that's
I
not the
definitely
first
am.
time that I've seen Piper AI turn up. But anyhow, here's Piper AI that's there next to Kevin and Sabrina, that are the humans in the team.
Mhm.
And this, I mean, the astonishing lack of awareness of some of these tech companies and what they're doing with AI. Like, it is just, we were just talking about asking the right questions. It's like, do these people take the time to ask anyone who has a normal perspective on the world what they should be doing or what they should be announcing? Because, like, literally, I've never seen the people of the internet come together so uniformly to tell poor Sarah Franklin that her idea sucked. And several days later, Lattice made the announcement. I mean, they did a whole blog post about this, and they updated it, and they are not further pursuing the digital worker product. They announced this on July 9th, and by July 12th, they had decided not to follow up with the thing that they had said was going to make history based on the responses that they had got. But it's like, where
Well, I'm
on
sorry. To be clear, they weren't planning to make history. They said they did make history.
Yeah, they said they did make it, and I agree. They made history because they brought the population of the internet together in a wonderful showing of solidarity. There are so many issues on Earth that we don't seem to be able to come together on, but on the idea of should we have AI on our org charts with the humans, we all said uniformly, no, you guys are morons.
Right. I this is wild to me because if you look at her original post on LinkedIn, she did say the inevitable arrival of these digital workers raises important questions about their integration, measurement, and impact on human jobs. And many of those questions are without clear answers or precedents. She said that. So no one is sitting there, completely blind to the fact that this is an out of control idea. Everyone and their mother is running around saying, we're afraid that AI is going to replace us. So you then say, oh, everyone's afraid of AI replacing you? Hold my beer. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to show you how AI can replace you by literally replacing a person or people on the team with digital
There
AI
used to
people.
be a person where Piper AI is.
Right.
You come to work one day and, Jill has left you and you got Piper instead.
This is
And you're
literally
like,
what people
what
are complaining
happened?
about. This is the thing.
But it's like, what world do the likes of Sarah Franklin live in? because I am not sure that the people who come up with this stuff literally live in the same reality that the rest of us do at this point. Like,
Yeah.
I think this is a level of complete idiocy that is like beyond reasonable understanding. And it's kind of like the whole recall thing blew up in Microsoft's face,
Mhm.
for different reasons. But again, it's like not reading the room entirely, not being accurate in what you're saying. And this
But
just takes that to a whole different level.
I'm with you, but here's the thing. Now, here's the other side to all of that. Let me tell you Sarah Franklin's mistake. She opened her mouth. That's the biggest mistake that she made, because you're talking about people who, they live in this other reality. You're not even reading the room, blah, blah, blah. Other people like Sarah Franklin are reading the room and they're still doing what they're doing, but they're not telling anybody about it. That's the difference. Sarah Franklin thought, oh, we're making big strides and we're making history. I'm sorry, we've made history. Check us out. Look what we did. Thing blew up in her face. 3 days later, they're shutting it down. There's someone else, a bunch of someone else's like Sarah Franklin, who are doing that. They are thinking, oh, I could replace a person. I could put them even on an org chart. I could treat them like a real employee and train them, because we have to train our AI models. We have to do this, that, and the third. This is a really good idea. Hey, let's announce it to the world. No, we're not going to announce it to the world because people don't want us to do this. But I know that if we do it, it's going to be a great idea. We should still do it. So to me, that's the problem, is that Sarah thought what she was doing was going to be well received, where someone else who's doing what Sarah's doing knows that it's not going to be well received, but they still think it's a good idea. And that's where people are freaking out about. They're like,
Oh,
don't
I
BS
agree.
me. They think that AI is going to replace them.
No, I agree with you, and I think the issue for me with this is not necessarily that what they're saying is nonsense in the very long term. The problem is that what they're saying is absolute and complete nonsense today. Like, the technology is like the AI technology is useful. It can help everyone. I think that every something like Copilot, every information focused worker, in my opinion, can get some value from using a product like Copilot.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea that anything that is based around these technologies is ready to be treated in the same way and onboarded and managed and so on in the same way as a human employee is such utter and complete drivel. Like, it is so out there that, like, what on earth are they doing? Like, has she ever used AI? Like,
Man,
has
that's
she ever in her entire life used AI before posting this on the like? It is just astonishing. So either, there are these conspiracy theorists that believe that there's already these AGI like tools out there that are ready to take over in the background. I've seen some of this content where people are saying that they're hiding the real power of this technology from us, and I think all this type of thing serves to do is to bolster those kinds of conspiracies, and in my view, the reality is this: like, why would a company sit on a product that they can sell for more money than the product they're selling already, right? Like, if they have the capacity to build out an AI that's going to be a human replacement AI, why wouldn't you sell that to someone? You're
mm,
not just going to sit on it and be like, oh well, that's for 3 years' time. We'll just carry on with what we're doing today. Like,
mm-hmm.
clearly they don't have this product ready, and so by coming out with this nonsense, like, it it's just so stupid. Like, and I just don't know, like, what are we doing that this is what happens now, like, it's like I'm going to promise something that we're not going to be able to deliver in 6 months, and another company comes along and says I'm going to promise something that we can't deliver in 9 months, and this lady comes along and she's like, you know what, I'm going to promise something that we're not going to be able to deliver until 2045, and I'm going to start selling that to people.
I'll tell you what. Now, here's what I would think, though, because you said what is she even thinking? Has she even used AI? So here's the thing. From afar, I know minor information can be amplified from afar. I get it. Because I'm not one to see a picture on the internet and then start coming up with a bunch of theories about what's going on behind that picture. It's a snapshot in time. I couldn't tell you what was going on, what was being said, whatever. That's how I view sensational information on the internet. But you said that her brother, Sam Altman's brother, started that company.
Yeah.
Right? It's not far-fetched to think regular conversation. Even at a restaurant, drinking a couple beers, the brother heard from Sam, because Sam is an innovator. Sam his mind is always going to the point where, this is his thing. He might have said, bro, listen, what we're doing today is nothing. In less than a year, we can start replacing certain positions, blah, 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 blah. And his brother latches on and goes, oh, really? Is that what you think? And then they have some kind of conversation. And maybe he digs deeper into this conversation. And now the brother, I don't have timelines. I don't have anything. But let's just say it's not far-fetched for communication to travel from Sam to the brother to this woman to the company. Like, that's not far-fetched. You know what I'm saying? To the point where she sold, so much sold, that she uses the terminology that they have made history, and then she publishes it on the internet. We've seen companies make bigger blunders. Companies just make blunders, big blunders, on the internet for everyone to see. So she's just joining the ranks. But I don't think it's far-fetched that her mind thinks not only is this possible, but we have done it because we've created history. It's just that, like, to your point, they created a different kind of history. So I don't know what's going on in there. I don't know what's going on in this company. I don't know what's happening behind the scenes. She may even said, let's throw it out there and stir it up and see what happens. But we know we're going to shut it down in 3 days later. You know what I'm saying? Who knows with these people? But
I mean, no one. I hadn't heard of Lattice ahead of this.
Me either.
So maybe that's the point. I don't know Therman, but I just looked at this and I was like, I just have never seen anything so stupid in my life.
Oh man, I love it. Listen, Nick, before we get out of here, why don't you tell people where they can find you or what you got going on? Let's go ahead and drop them links too. You know what I mean? What's happening with you?
Come across to see me on LinkedIn, where I'll be trying to make history this week. Not sure how. I'll come up with an idea. I'll announce it on Wednesday, and I'll shut it down by Saturday. How about that?
Yes.
So check me out on LinkedIn. Give me a follow on YouTube. Come see some of that information that I put out there. Happy to connect with anyone who wants to chat and about these kinds of things.
Yeah.
How
Nick,
about you, Therman? What do you got going on?
I always got the risk register. If you are looking for a better way to build your risk register instead of building it in Excel, trust me, it's better than SharePoint. Do that. You know what I mean? I will show you how to build it in SharePoint. The link should be in the description. And Nick, to your point, maybe you shouldn't make history by yourself. Maybe Business Boost, we should make history. We should hire. Well, okay. We should make an announcement of something that we have done, call it history, and then, we could get some eyeballs on the Business Boost. So if you're in,
we should shake it up a bit.
Shake it up a bit. Throw me some ideas. Let's get some terrible controversy.
Maybe we should have an AI host at the
there
next.
We go.
There you go. That would be great.
That'd be perfect. All right, good deal. Yeah, and I'm on LinkedIn too. So find me on LinkedIn all day, every day.
All right. Well, until the next episode, take care, everyone. Take care, Therman. It was good chatting with you.
Yeah, always. See ya.